We are on, sir. We are on the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, tonight I have with me Estil,
Estil.
Estil, Estil Wallace. You are the founder and CEO of, trying to get my notes here,
No sweat.
but yep. Hold on a second here. Mm, 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 mm. All right. You are the CEO of the Cornerstone Healing Center. That's right.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Now, before we talk about your company, Estel, I want us to take a journey about you and your life because your journey is, I guess, is what laid the foundation for you to create Cornerstone in the first place, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. It's been a passion project for sure.
For sure. All right. Well, start from the beginning, brother. You can talk about your family and whatever you want to do.
Uh well, so let's see. My I come from a long line of alcoholics. How about
Mm,
that? Start there. My
okay.
my mother, rest her soul, was one of 11 children. Uh, Due to sexual abuse, was removed from her home and into foster care when she was 3, uh, like her siblings. So she left me in foster care when I was an infant. Uh, Eventually, I went through adoption. So, if I go back in my family history, both mom and dad's side, it's just there's a lot of this. There's a lot of alcoholism, a lot of abuse, and as a kid, first of all, the family I grew up with, we didn't really talk about it. So there were a lot of unanswered questions, maybe questions that I hadn't even thought to ask, and like so many people who have beginnings like that, whether it's foster care, adoption, abuse, alcoholism from caretakers, stuff like that. I got into drugs and alcohol at a pretty early age. And by the time I was a teenager, let's call it 17, 18, my life was already pretty far unraveled. By 19, I was already trying to get sober. I'd been living on the streets for a year.
Mhm.
I continued down that path until I was 26. So at 26 years old, I found myself, hey, I'm sorry. Hey, buddy, my son's popping in here.
Oh,
Can you give me just a moment? I'm sorry. And
oh,
I could re-answer the question. All right, that would be great. Yeah. Love you, buddy. I love you. Oh, he just wants to hang out. All right, I'll re-answer the question.
Go ahead, man. Take your time.
So,
Take your time. You were.
so my family on both sides, mom and dad's side, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of drug addiction, a lot of abuse, sexual violence, both sides of the house going way back as far as any of the great grandparents, cousins, second cousins. I mean, it goes in most directions. There are a few pockets of my extended family that haven't gone through the worst of it, but a lot of us did. That being said, like many children who go either through foster care or adoption, like I did, where there's alcoholism or abuse from parents or parental figures, guardians in the family. I got into drugs and alcohol pretty early. I
Mhm.
was I was pretty far gone by 17, 18. I was trying to get sober when I was 19, and by the time I was 26, I'd been living on and off the streets and out in and out of trap houses, for 7 years. And and we're talking primarily methamphetamine and alcohol.
Oh,
So I had been plenty of heroin, plenty of pills, smoked. It was the 90s. I smoked plenty of crack. I was a drug addict. I
okay.
was a full-blown drug addict in my late teens and early 20s. I wandered, I fumbled into my way into a 12-step program while I was in county jail. been arrested before. I'd been to, like an AA meeting or a CA meeting before, but I didn't really understand what it was. But the last time I was arrested, which was May 8th of 2004, I ended up, it wasn't just a drunk tank. I was in jail for a month and a half. And in a, while I was in this other facility with nothing to do, they made an announcement for an AA meeting and I went, not really understanding. I just wanted an hour I was in a warehouse with like 100 inmates.
Hmm.
So to get an hour out of the warehouse and just see what this AA thing's about was just kind of like whatever. And I hadn't anticipated being struck the way I was. Uh, I was not a spiritual person prior to recovery, had no faith in God, had no relationship with God. I don't know that I was an atheist, but I I was definitely violently anti-religious at that time
Okay.
and would have, I was very antagonistic towards spiritual, any like even spiritual vocabulary. I was very put off by the whole idea because I was so sick. I was such a hurt person that hadn't allowed myself to heal, hadn't forgiven other people, hadn't forgiven myself, I hadn't done any work.
Hmm.
And it's funny, people like to talk about doing the work, and sometimes it's tongue in cheek, and sometimes I think they're serious. But when I think of a phrase like that, doing the work involves introspection, accountability. Like I'm not doing the work by myself. I need
Hmm.
help to see what kind of flawed character I have. I need help
Hmm.
walking me through where this isn't everybody else's fault. In the 12 step world, we have sponsors. And that's what, I fell in love with Alcoholics Anonymous with the 12 step program. I became interested while I was in jail. And then, somebody that I met in there, not an inmate, somebody bringing in one of the meetings, he looked at me in the eyes when I talked to him after the meeting, and he genuinely asked me something that nobody had asked me in a long time. And he looked me in the eyes and said, "Kid, do you need help?"
Hmm.
He said, "You got somewhere to go when you get out of jail?"
Hmm.
Uh, and I said, "No, I don't. I have no idea where I'm going to go when I get out of jail. And if you're willing to help me, I'll take it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do." And that was a very vulnerable and open moment for me. And it was pivotal. It changed the course of my life, being willing to accept this other man's help. And and that's what happened. He helped me get into a halfway house in Central. We always call them halfway houses. Today we call them sober livings, and they're a little different. But it was in the hood in Central Phoenix. And coming from homeless, jail was kind of an improvement. And coming from jail, the halfway house was an improvement. So I I moved into this halfway house and I went to 12-step meetings every single day.
Hmm.
And I was on, 2 terms of felony probation. I was in some pretty hot water legally. You
Hmm.
and not because I'm some kind of master criminal or a gang member or something like that. I was a drug addict.
Yeah.
I got possession charges, I got assault charges, I got breaking in, I got burglary charges, I was doing drug addict stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to 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 go from this broken, faithless, person, Alcoholics Anonymous, these people showed me that there they showed me there's what you have isn't unique. To want to drink when you're sober because you can't stand yourself, to need to get trashed every day because you hate yourself, because you hate your life, is not unique to you, Estil. There's a name for it. Millions of people have it. It's called alcoholism. To
Hmm.
inability to live sober is called alcoholism. And
Hmm.
we have an answer. We have a solution for that. It's called the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm skeptical. Well, I don't want to be a Christian. I don't know what all this God stuff is about. And they said, listen, don't worry about it. All you have to do is move your feet like a trainer in the gym, right?
Hmm.
You can bitch and moan, but if you do the work, you can get results. And
Yeah.
that's what these guys did. Thank God they were so patient with me. And they walked me through the steps and I got a job moving furniture. It was 2004, so minimum wage in Arizona was like $8 an hour. And
Oh, okay.
uh,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I lived in a halfway house. I could barely make my bills.
Mm.
I rode the city bus everywhere. I don't know
Hmm.
what the public transport's like in Milwaukee, but here in Arizona, I mean, this isn't LA. This isn't not LA is not a good example. This isn't New York. This isn't London. that we don't have a good, we have like buses here,
Hmm.
and they don't run that frequently, and it's dicey. And as I
Hmm.
did, I took the bus everywhere and I walked, and in the summertime it's hot. I got sober in summertime.
Oh, I bet.
That that period in my life, I transitioned from blaming my past, from blaming my parents, from blaming the people that raised me, from blaming the government, from blaming the cops, from blaming, you know, the women in my life, to taking responsibility for my own, to reparent myself. You say, you know what? Nobody's coming to save me.
Mm-mm.
Everybody I'm mad at's dead. Everybody who I want to say it's their fault, their fault. Those people aren't around. And here I am living in the hood. I just joined a 12-step program. I don't even know if I belong here. I'm wearing donated clothing. My sponsor's telling me that there's a good life available for me if I'm willing to do the work. And one sip at a time, man, I drank the Kool-Aid. I drank the Kool-Aid that they handed out in the 12-step program. And I thought to myself, as much as I don't want to do all this weird stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to go to prison.
Hmm.
I have a 2-year probation term.
Yeah. And I was about to say, I don't know how it is, not to cut you off, but I don't know how the legal system is in Phoenix. But I know here in Milwaukee, hey, one call, that's all. You know, so if they get that call that, hey, I see Estil doing blah, 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 you know, it's over for you.
Yeah, I mean, Phoenix is a big city, but they do get, you pop up, you become a frequent flyer and they get used to you. Yeah, the leash gets shorter and shorter. We have
Hmm.
uh, we have drug court out here, and drug court I think is a really good thing. I'd never heard of it before. It's an attempt to try to stop people that are nonviolent drug offenders from going to prison or going back to prison. It's an attempt to force them into some kind of programming. And that's what happened to me. I one sip at a time, I drank the Kool-Aid. I worked a crappy job. I went to 12-step meetings every day, and I had this plan that, I've got to somehow stay sober 2 years to get off probation if I'm going to stay out of prison. And I thought, as much as this is uncomfortable and weird, and I'm not sure I want to do it, I definitely don't want to go to prison. So I just did the work that was in front of me, thinking to myself, when I get off of probation, I'm probably going to drink beer at a game, right? I'm probably going to have a beer at some point. I'm probably going to smoke pot again. And man, by the time I got off probation, the change that had happened to me was so profound. I had no interest in ever going back to that life. I have
Mm.
no interest in smoking weed. I don't have anything against it. I don't have anything against people who drink, whatever. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a real alcoholic. I cannot safely use drugs or alcohol at all. Marijuana comes up a lot, and the marijuana is so strong these days, but for me, it's not about, what my rights are. Like I frightfully abused the privilege to smoke marijuana, me personally. And it's not like I never smoked any, man. I smoked tons,
Right.
tons and tons. My teens and 20s were thrown away, locked in bathrooms, and it wasn't glamorous. It's not like I was, smoking pot. In my mind, I want to smoke pot, listen to Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre. In the 90s,
Yeah.
but that's not what it was, man. I was doing hard drugs, locked in public bathrooms, you
Mm.
know, during some of the most formative years of my life.
Hmm.
Instead of like going to the military, getting in shape, raising the family, forging a career, going, getting an education, all the things that a normal, healthy person could and should do. I did none of that stuff. So for me, by the time this change had happened to me, I realized, man, not I've been wrong about a lot of stuff in this world, about God, about people, about my parents, because I hated them. I hated them. I hadn't created there was no forgiveness, so I hadn't created a new narrative around their lives. I hadn't realized yet that they were sick people, that they had struggled as much or worse than I did, that they too
Hmm.
had been through the foster system, that they too had been through adoption, that they too
Wow.
suffered abuse. I hadn't processed that. It was just
Both
me.
of them?
My father was not adopted, but bad alcoholic and was lived on the streets for a long time. When I lived on the streets, for some comparison, I was not like a, I wasn't like a hobo with a paper bag, behind
You're right.
something.
Yeah.
But I ended up, sleeping on rooftops, in and out of trap houses, doing what I could where I could, and there just wasn't enough to make it indoors every night. And that happened for years. Whereas my
Mm,
father very much was like a cartoon hobo who slept in public parks and pushed shopping carts and he lived that way for decades.
mm,
My father
mm,
never had a driver's license in his life. He died at 64 years old of natural causes, but it was multiple organ failure. He drank his whole life, from the age from teenage years on.
wow.
So he drank heavily, he drank alcoholically for about 50 years.
Mm,
And that's about as much as a human body can take. Never owned a home, never owned a car, never held a meaningful career. He had some odd jobs over the years, for sure. He graduated the Salvation Army adult rehabilitation program several times. And for all of his for all the things I could say about him, he was funny. He was funny. He had a sense of humor. He's a good storyteller. When he was a young guy, he was pretty handsome. There are things about him that I can look at and I can assimilate with, and I can see commonalities.
mm,
And rather than be angry with him that he couldn't do what was necessary, I can look at his life and I can express sorrow for him, and think to myself, he's just like some of the people I help and that I try to help. And some alcoholics don't make it. And he's one of those guys. He's one of those guys that didn't make it.
yeah.
And it's not, that's not it's not my place to place some kind of condemnation on that. It sucks. It sucks for me. It sucks for, people in my family, but it is what it is. And other people have it as bad or worse. What
Indeed.
I can do is take that and look at my family, look at my future. Because getting sober at 26, I luckily, listening to, West Coast rap in the 90s, these guys, Tupac and Snoop Dogg and Dre, they talked about wearing condoms all the time. They really promoted wearing condoms. So I showed up in the 2000s, you know, with no kids and no venereal diseases.
Mm,
Oddly enough, just a weird cultural thing.
mm,
My late 20s, I showed up in recovery, got a brand new life, had a criminal record, but had a chance to work on that. It's been worked on extensively, got legal, all that stuff. So I'm a concealed carry permit holder now. I own weapons. I'm a voter. I'm a
good.
business owner. I've got clean passport. I travel all over the world. All
Good.
those things have taken time to put together, but I had the opportunity to put all that stuff together. And because of all of that, I was in a much healthier place, and I was in a healthier place dating. I met my wife. We dated for a couple of years. I asked her to marry me. We were engaged for a year. We've had four children. Our first one died. It was a stillbirth. It was our first son.
Mm,
Since then, we've had three more children, two girls and a boy,
mm.
10, 7, and 4 right now. That was my 4-year-old son that was poking in here earlier. And on the family side, there's alcoholism in her family. I'm not going to tell Nicole's story for her, but
Sure,
there's
sure.
alcoholism on her side of the house as well. And when we got married, actually, when we got engaged, when we were planning our wedding, we both, I wouldn't say in tears, but in a very tender moment, we agreed and made a pact that we were going to build a family differently than we had grown up with, that we were going to break generational curses in our families. And
Amen.
it feels it feels really good to be doing that. To be raising three healthy children, mom and dad both present in the household. We've never had any issues. We have a happy marriage. It's a marriage, so I mean, we have our ups and downs. It's not like we agree on everything all the time. But I mean, she doesn't scream at me. She doesn't throw things at me. I don't put my hands on her. We don't live like that at all. And that wasn't what I was accustomed to. That's not what my family, my previous family is like. So for us, raising kids now in the 20s, both of us healthy, both of us present, both of us attuned. We're entrepreneurs and we've worked on a lot of projects together, but in recent years, we started homeschooling. My wife doesn't work anymore. That's what her choice. She chooses to do that. And
Mm,
investments we've made, businesses we've started have given us the flexibility and the ability, the capability to do that. To
yeah.
where I work a pretty normal schedule, not super normal, but I work regularly. The kids are used to seeing dad leave for the day, and
Mm,
mom stays home and does homeschool with them,
yeah.
takes them to sports, doing all this stuff. Cooks most of our meals. I'm usually home every late afternoon. I like to cook breakfast with them in the morning if I can, depending on the schedule. I'm
Right.
around on weekends. We travel all as a family.
Awesome.
It's on the family side, it's been a wild and beautiful experience to recreate what I didn't have as a kid. And I would, without going too far and speaking for Nicole too much, I would say that she would agree. Being able
Awesome.
to recreate this thing that we didn't have a blueprint for, but we kind of intuitively knew we wanted.
Awesome. So what led you to create Cornerstone?
We're entrepreneurs, so being uneducated, I got out of high school by the skin of my teeth. I didn't actually graduate. I went back and got a high school equivalent a few years, I think when I was 20 or 21. So I don't have I have no formal education beyond the basics, beyond 12th grade. But that in early sobriety, I moved furniture, I repossessed cars. I got into a sales job and I worked for an entrepreneur at one point. And unbeknownst to me, he became my first real like financial mentor.
Mm,
And it wasn't like he was trying to pour into me, but I was interested. I would ask him things, and to my surprise, he would just answer them. And he would just give me useful information. I didn't know any millionaires. I never, I grew up with very little and had even less as as a young adult. So to be able to spend time with a millionaire who was only like 2 years older than me
mm.
and ask
Wow.
him, it boggled my mind to be 28, 29, to be working for a guy who's 30 or 31,
Yeah.
multiple cars, multiple properties, multiple businesses, invests in real estate, does all this stuff. He's got, 100 and something people working for him.
Hmm.
It blew my mind. And that he would, I started asking things like, how do you manage all these people? And he would just tell me. And I would say, well, how do you pay taxes? I mean, isn't there a lot of taxes? And he would just tell me. And he enough questions. And he said to me, have you read this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad? And I said, nope. He said, well, listen, I'd be happy to answer your questions, but why don't you read that book, write down some very specific questions. I'll buy you coffee and I'll do my best to help fill in the blanks here with my experience. And I said, okay. And I believe it was that day I went to a used bookstore and I got an old dog-eared copy of that book, paperback copy of that book. And it took
Hmm.
me a week to read it. And I highlighted the crap out of it. And
Yeah.
I came back to him with a notebook full of questions. And over the course of a few different sit downs over coffee, he answered my questions, and he was the last person where I had a regular W-2 job. That was in 2000. Gosh, that was in 2005, 2006. I started my first company in 2007, and I did a lot of stuff as a young entrepreneur. Um, Gosh, I worked in digital marketing. Uh, I worked in solar sales. I mean, I've done all kinds of things. A lot of stuff was enough to keep the lights on, but no real success.
Hmm.
Over the years, though, what I had learned through multiple businesses, multiple projects, and all in different verticals, oddly, I think that can be telltale of a young but not centered entrepreneur is, working in all these different verticals, thinking something's going to hit. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to, like 50 Cent, I wanted to get rich or die trying, and I didn't have any education. The what I was told when I was a kid was the well-worn path to financial freedom, which was get good grades, go to college, get a safe job. That wasn't on the table for me. I was
Hmm.
already almost 30 years old with no education.
Hmm.
Who's going to pay me to do what? And I started my first little consulting agency, and I went from making 30 grand a year to making 100. And I thought, this is the ticket. I'm going this way. I'm going to work for myself.
Indeed.
So, yeah, many years and several failed businesses, a couple of mild successes later, I uh, I got I was working I was working as a salesman, commission only, selling bathroom and kitchen remodeling. And I got the notion when I went to a treatment center to speak, I was doing like a 12-step talk at a treatment center. And I kind of looked around with an entrepreneur's eye and I thought, how does this function? How does this work? And I started asking questions and I started taking notes and doing research. I did about 3 months worth of research. And Nicole and we decided we're gonna try this. It's there's enough of a profit margin depending on the specific niche. You know, you can make between a 10% and a 20% profit margin. So it's a viable business.
Sure.
There's a lot of regulatory hurdles to get through. You know, we run our facility, we have four facilities, and we're talking psychiatric, medical, and behavioral health. So there's a lot of red tape involved, but I'm passionate about helping people. I want to see people find sobriety. I want to see people find God. I want to see people rebuild their lives. I want to see people get back into their families. I want to see people break generational curses in their families. And and I had just enough experience as an entrepreneur, building organizations, getting my teeth kicked in, right? Taking some
Mhm.
losses.
Yeah. Yeah.
That that when Nicole and I started Cornerstone in late 2017, we hired well in the beginning. Our first hire is still with us. He's going to be our CEO soon. And we have, I would say there's three or four people that were in our first batch of hires that are still with us, 8 years later. And we have a strong culture. We have a strong mission fit culture of people that are passionate about recovery, passionate about helping people. And that carried us through it took us 2.5 years to break even, to earn our first dollar of profit. So
Wow.
it's that kind of love for what we do that carried us through those first couple of years.
Nice.
And gosh, it's been wild since then. It's been
Nice.
wild, ups, downs,
Yeah.
and in between.
Yeah. So how does Cornerstone help people overcome their addictions and or their limiting beliefs?
It's a great question. So when people ask about Cornerstone, I like to keep it simple at first and then sort of broaden it. So if you think drug and alcohol rehab, that's sort of at the center of it, but we've expanded so much. We also treat primary mental health. So we treat a lot of PTSD. We treat a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. We're talking from the residential level to people who step down into partial hospitalization, into IOP 5 days a week, 4 days a week, 3 days a week. We offer a lot of supportive housing. We have virtual programming. So we have a lot of stuff we do. And we don't just take the person who's ready to change their whole life, but let's start there. The person like me who's sick, broken, they're drinking themselves to death.
Hmm.
We get that person, and the first thing we have to do is separate them from their environment, which is what's great about immersive treatment. They all want to go, tears in the eyes, I'll do anything to change. And then 2 days into it, they're like, man, this sucks. Because now it's starting to get real. I'm
Mm.
starting to feel again.
Yeah.
And that's where we have this really tender moment. I would say in the first 2 weeks is this curing period where people are either gonna walk out the front door and say, I'm not ready to do this, or they're going to allow themselves to kick and scream, but stay where their feet are.
Hmm.
Those people are typically the ones who get results, strong results. So people that complete our program, I mean, 85% of them are still sober and doing well a year and a half post-treatment. So our outcomes are really strong. But specifically, what are we doing? We're separating them from their environment. We're doing family systems work. We're looking at what role did you play in your family's ecosystem? And can we disassociate that from your identity? Can we show you that you're not the pain that you come from? Can we show
Mm.
you that? And it's for some people, this takes longer than others because you've got a military background, you're familiar with PTSD. There are things, depending on the person's background and depending on their unique personality, there are some people that just won't, sorry for cussing, but they just won't fucking talk about certain things,
No,
right?
especially.
Right. And we work with first responders. I work with firefighters. I work with cops. I work with
Yeah.
people from that are military.
Yeah.
Not to mention people that have been through, long prison stretches. We work
Mm,
with people that have been through a lot of trauma. And each person, we've got to find a safe enough place within our organization, within the therapeutic, we want to call it the therapeutic alliance between our staff and each patient to where they can crack and they can get honest and they can address what's happened, whatever it is that's happened. And it's through trauma work. And it's not what I like about what we do specifically, which is not that uncommon, is we're not doing anything fancy in terms of we're not doing the latest stuff. We're not doing ketamine. I got nothing against that stuff, but we're not here doing pseudoscience. We're not doing brand new science. We're doing good old fashioned Carl Jungian type therapy that's been around 100 plus years. And we're matching it up with good old street level spirituality of 12 step. That's it. We're going to
mm,
talk about what happened, where you're going to take accountability for your actions, for your
mm,
life.
mm,
We're going to get you going to meetings where we get you praying to a God, even if you don't believe in it. And you do that with enough repetitions, 2, 3 months, we usually see the lights come on. By the time they've been with us 5, 6 months, they're ready to take off and start new lives. And they often do. Many of them want to come and work with us. So we have quite a few alumni that are on our team. Our team
nice.
is about 145 people now. And I would say probably between 40 and 50 of them are former clients with years of sobriety, years of recovery under their belts.
Congratulations on that.
It's
Now,
wild. It's
I
wild.
know, man. I know. Now, are all these different facilities in Phoenix or they're
They're all in the Phoenix metro area. Yeah, we've got two facilities in Scottsdale and we've got two in Phoenix. Um, we are we are expanding. I don't want to spill the beans too much, but we are expanding into the East Coast. Hopefully within the next year, we should have a couple of new states open.
wow.
Yeah,
Uh
we're pressing forward.
you're moving. You guys are
Yeah,
moving.
yeah.
Man, look at God work. Uh do you guys do like methadone for your treatment or you guys just
So it's a really good question. I grew up with a guy, oddly, who runs one of the largest MAT or MOUD, medication assisted treatment clinics or agencies in the Southwest. I had breakfast with him this morning. He's an old friend, a good friend, and we get into these conversations. So at Cornerstone, methadone is not something that we provide. There are types of MAT that we do provide. It's at a lower level, whereas, a methadone clinic or a harm reduction clinic is really focused on reducing overdose specifically. And I'm 1000% in support of this.
sure.
So I love, I'm a big supporter of MAT clinics, of the methadone clinics, the Suboxone clinics. That's not specifically what we do at Cornerstone. And we have never pretended to try and be a one size fits all t-shirt for everybody. And and I think when as community partners we work together this way, and we work with some MAT clinics that aren't trying to pretend that they do deep trauma work. Like in the same token, they refer us patients and we refer them some of the guys that aren't ready.
Mm,
Because I don't
mm,
want them to die and I don't want somebody to go without services just because they're not willing to take, what we offer.
mhm.
So we do use medications, but primarily buprenorphine and naltrexone, and then also an injectable form of naltrexone is called Vivitrol. Vivitrol is an opiate blocker. So you take a shot in the arm every 30 days, and it
Okay.
basically makes it so that if you were to smoke fentanyl, you wouldn't feel it. You wouldn't get high from it.
Mm,
We do use substances like that to some degree, to a greater or less degree, but that's not the primary. That's not
right.
our primary tool in the bag. That's not our primary lane.
Right.
That's one of the things that sets us, I think, apart from some treatment centers.
Yeah.
Uh, Again, nothing against medications. We
Sure.
absolutely support that.
Yeah.
I would almost say some of the really hardcore methadone clinics that are in the hood, that are working with some of our most vulnerable populations, I'm a big supporter of that because there are people who are not going to do what we're asking to them to do. You know, they're not going to go out and make amends. They're not going to take accountability. And some of them may not be able to. We've got a large, serious mental illness population in the United States,
Hell yeah.
right? Like you got
Absolutely.
somebody with full-blown schizophrenia, like schizophrenia usually sets on in the late 20s. You got somebody who's 40 years old, 40-year-old male. Let's call him ex-combat veteran. Let's call him ex-cop. 40 years old, his career's trash, his wife and kids are long gone. He's living on the streets, smokes fentanyl, shoots heroin. Is he a drug addict or is he mental health? What is he going to get? Is he ever going to get sober? Probably not. It doesn't mean his life is worthless. You know,
Mm,
if we can do anything to wrap services and wrap the arms of our community around that guy, I want to.
mm,
I want to make sure every life is touched if we can.
mm,
And we're yeah, like Cornerstone, we have our own limitations. There's only so much we can do as an agency. Of course, we continue to push and grow and do more stuff. But gosh, you take someone like that, a patient like we just described, you know, they, it's 30, 60, 90-day treatment with navigation services. That that's not really gonna, we could stabilize somebody like that. We can stabilize them. But schizophrenia specifically, how do we manage long term? Because you can't reduce it, there's no cure. How do we manage?
mm,
And if we can keep and if we can build a rapport, if that guy can build a rapport with a clinic, maybe not with a clinician, because as you probably know, once if they decide that you're part of the system, they don't want to work with you anymore. They think you're part of what's trying to hold them back. But if they can form a relationship with a clinic and they've got some case managers and a team that can follow at arm's length, you can really help a person like that stay alive, hopefully stay off the streets. Try and keep them in housing as long as possible.
mm,
Somebody, if providers aren't out here doing it, nobody's going to.
mhm.
Look
Yeah,
at you look at some of America's cities that have the biggest homeless populations. I think the assumption for most people, for the average person who doesn't have exposure to the space, assumes drug addiction. And then you have stigma. They think, oh, well, they made their bed. They should lie in it. What a shame that they do this to themselves. Well, you see a homeless encampment, you go through it makes me want to cry. You go through South Phoenix, you go through West Phoenix, you go through parts of Los Angeles or San Francisco. You know, those encampments filled with people, that's not 100% drug addiction. That's not 100% people just saying, screw the world, I'm going to go drink myself into oblivion. These are really hurt people. And many of them, I would say more than half, maybe 60%, are struggling with serious mental illness.
indeed,
It's hard to keep them in care.
indeed, indeed. And
Medications.
we have that same issue here in Milwaukee where a lot of homeless people that we see out here, and I'll throw this out here too. A lot of them are veterans.
It hurts my heart, man.
Yeah, it hurts me to the core when I go to the VA and my experiences of dealing uh in my journey of understanding what PTSD is and what mental health is. I encountered a lot of veterans who were homeless. And the sad part about it is that there's only so much that the VA system can do for them.
Mhm.
They have to do the work once they received the limited amount of resources that the VA can give them. And we're talking about uh, 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 which is one of the questions I was going to ask you about misconceptions about mental health
Mhm.
and addictions. Pe People think that the VA and all the resources that are available is like an open door.
Mhm.
And the reality is, it isn't.
No, it's not.
And so when you see people talking about how broken the VA system is, it is because I had to experience some things of my own, but at the same time, if you're not doing the work to get up your ass and make some moves, you can't get mad at anybody or any system except the person that you look in, well, the first thing you wake up in the morning, you look at yourself and say, look, I need to make some moves. I need to make this thing happen. I need to get better. Nobody can make you do jack,
Mm-mm.
right? The door is always open.
And that's, I think you're touching on it there. I think as providers, that's our responsibility is to make sure that the door is always open. We want a place for when people are ready. When people are ready, I want to make sure there's a place, a safe place where they can come and find a commonality. They can find understanding. They can find that if they want to talk, if they're open to talking about their experiences, that they're not the only one who's been through hell. You
Right.
know, they can
Yeah.
find that solution there. That's our responsibility. But yeah, we can't make anybody do anything.
Mm-mm. You can't. You can't. But as far as the resources that are available and those that are accessing them, I mean, you may have contrary stories,
Hmm.
and that leads to the misconception that the lack of resources or the thought of the lack of resources. The reality is, it's out there.
Look at California. California allocates more money per capita towards homelessness than any state in our union, and how they have more homeless than any state
But
in
they
our
got
union.
more homeless.
Hmm? So
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, there's no magic bullet, and having the resources doesn't necessarily that isn't the magic bullet. Money doesn't necessarily fix it. Money fixes money problems. This isn't a money problem.
Mm-mm.
Money is a metric, but
Oh, yeah.
that's not what moves the needle.
What we're dealing with is a multifaceted me problem. This is a me problem.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to do drugs. I'm choosing to get hooked under this, the alcohol and or whatever. And I'm dealing with things that's beyond my control, but I'm not doing anything to fix it. So it is a me problem.
Hmm. And taking responsibility for one's actions is really the big open door, wider than I think people realize, to recovery. That's where it really starts, taking responsibility. And yeah, bad things happen to all kinds of people. But can I say, so what now?
Mm,
Am I willing to say, all right, I'm willing to put a pin in all of that and ask myself, what can I do today to try and improve my life, let alone improve the lives of other people?
mm.
Because we got to, if we're not moving forward, we're moving backward.
Hey, like the old saying goes, it's either one day or day one.
That's right.
Take your pick.
And they're both hard, right?
Oh
They're
yeah.
both hard. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
living in alcoholic misery is hard to do. Trying to scrape together 50 or $100 to get loaded every day is hard work. So is so is facing your demons. So is
Mm,
clearing the wreckage of your past and finding accountability and taking a shit job that you think is beneath you. And they're both hard. Yeah, pick one.
absolutely.
Which one? Which, which
One
way do
day
you want to go?
or day one.
That's
Yeah.
right. Is it going to be one day or is today day one? Yeah, neither. None of it's easy.
No,
It's easy.
because if it was, we wouldn't have any problems anymore, wouldn't we?
No, and that's something that's common. So that's a common misconception, I think, with alcoholics and drug addicts, even people with primary mental health. When they step into recovery, when they step into treatment, they view getting themselves to treatment as the finish line. Like, I just need to get there and everything's going to be fine. It's like, brother,
Mm,
this is the starting line.
mm.
Glad you're here. Now
Yes.
we have real work to do.
This is day one.
This is day one out
This is
here.
day one, right?
I'm sorry it's taken so long to get
You're
here.
right. But
Yeah,
right
that's
here,
common. Guys get it. Yeah, they get to treatment and are frustrated that things aren't moving. How come I don't feel different? How come
mm.
nothing? Like, my dude, you've been sober 6 days. You're you're still, nothing has changed in your behavior, your mindset, your disciplines, your daily actions, except the fact that you're not shooting heroin in 6 days. That's the only thing is different. We got to start working. We got to work on you. We got to work on how you relate to yourself, to God, to the people around you.
Man. So, re so really, it sounds like to an extent, you guys just have some really like hardcore, truthful conversation with these guys.
Yeah, we have a big clinical team. Yeah, a lot of licensed clinicians, a lot of peer support. Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of leaders. Yeah, yeah, it's a lot of hard conversations, a lot of group therapy, a lot of individual
yeah,
therapy.
yeah.
If as far as fancy stuff, we do use EMDR. We don't overuse it. It's only in specific cases. And
What's
we
EMDR?
it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing.
Okay.
Uh, so it's it's this eye movement thing. If you haven't looked at it, you got to Google it. It has been around for probably 30 or 40 years now. It's really picked up steam in the last 10 or 15 years. It's when you're dreaming, your eyes move back and forth. It's
Mm,
what they call bilateral stimulation. A woman many years ago discovered that you could recreate an openness to past occurrences. Nothing woo-woo, like literally being able to tolerate uh, horrible memories when you're experiencing bilateral stimulation. So you get into talk therapy and you're doing bilateral stimulation, and without completely reopening the wound, sort of touching near an old wound, and your body sort of feels all of that, like PTSD, it feels all that anxiety, all that angst, and your
hmm
mind through the therapy, you can start to put it where it belongs, archived in the past in the filing cabinet.
mm,
Here's somebody who's healthy, who's been through something awful, a divorce, death of a parent or something. They can look backward. They might even shed a tear or well up when they think about it and say, yeah, that was a tough time in my life. Someone with PTSD, it's right here all the time,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
So what we
Yep.
want to do is we want to get them into a healthier state by being able to tiptoe into that water and one file at a time, put those files in the filing cabinet.
Yeah.
So eventually, within a few months, you can talk about however comfortable you are going, however deep you are comfortable going, be able to
Yeah.
talk about the past and it not wreck your week, not send you off into an episode. And
Mm,
that's because you can't get rid of it. It's not gone.
mm,
Things like grief and trauma, those things aren't gone, but you can learn how to manage and get
manage.
control of your mind,
Totally,
get connected to God and get healthier
totally
so
agree.
live on. People go through, you look back over the ages and people have suffered all kinds of atrocities and we've marched on as a civilization. But how
Mm,
do I do that and do it in a healthy way? How do I do it and not transmit it to my kids? You know,
hmm
yeah, my grandfather, he beat us. Like, does that mean I beat my kids? Well, I don't want to beat my kids.
Right.
Well, I got to learn something new.
Right. Right. And you know, I said this to someone before in a previous episode. That dog is always in me.
Hmm.
I just learned how to tame that dog
Correct. That's a great way to say it.
because that PTSD, I don't know if it will ever leave me because there are moments that it does sneak up on you and you find yourself thinking some funky thoughts,
Sure.
you know?
Mhm.
I call that stinking thinking. You know, that stinking thinking comes up on you and it's like, well, wait a minute, my mind's starting to go left. Let me let me let me reel it in. Let me reel that negative thinking in and and just realize that I'm here. I'm in the present. I'm here talking to you right now. And
Right.
I had to do that self-talk at times to really reel me back in because when that stinking thinking gets in and it takes over, and your mind just goes to wherever it wants to go.
Hmm.
And that's not a cool place to be.
No.
You need to be in control of this because when you lose control of this, then you're screwed. And that dog is going to come out. When somebody touches you the wrong way or says something wrong when you're not right here, that dog is going to come out.
Yeah. And, you know, whether it's PTSD, whether it's, like I work with guys that are offenders. They come out of long, especially these guys that have done 10 or more years in prison. They have a hard time in big 12 step meetings. They don't want to go to Walmart. They're at a place where they're so afraid of being in crowds of people, particularly where there's men around. they can't function in normal life. And then we
I
wonder
don't
why
like crowds either. I still don't
they,
like crowds. I'm
right?
56. I still don't like crowds.
Yeah, I'm okay in crowds. I don't think I have the same type of trauma you have, but you know, thank God for people like you out here doing work, trying to help men and women find better lives.
Indeed.
'Cause, you know, it's a big nasty world out there, and it doesn't have to be a veil of tears because people like you care, because people like you are willing to listen. It gives hope to other people, other men and women that want to get better, that
Hmm.
want to have a better life. You know,
Indeed.
it's the kindness of people like you, it's the kindness of people in the 12-step program, that visited me in jail. And they weren't visiting me in jail, they were just bringing a meeting to a group of inmates. But it's those kindnesses, man. It,
Hmm.
they change the world around one life at a time.
One person at a time.
That's right.
And my firm belief too is if I could effect change in one person, then I've done my job.
I couldn't agree more.
One. That's all I need. Just give me one. I'll hang this head up because you know, hey, that's it. Just give me one. And if I could change that person, then I would just rinse and repeat,
Yep.
rinse
Yeah,
and repeat, rinse and repeat.
just to even be a cog in the wheel, to know that the efforts that we're putting forth
Yes,
are making a path, a well-worn path for people to find health, to find
that's it.
healing, to
That's
find
it.
hope. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's a
Uh,
big part of what we do at Cornerstone, man. It's a big
Good,
part of it.
man. That's good stuff, man. It's good to hear. I mean, you said that you're planning on opening up another site in the East Coast. Is anything else going on with Cornerstone?
We opened up virtual care. We've been tinkering with virtual care for a little while. It's starting to really get some legs. Our virtual programming is really, we do some PTSD there. It just depends on the depth. We do a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression in that particular lane. Our in-person immersive treatment is really for serious mental health stuff where they're just, where they're incapacitated, where they can't work, where they can't get out into the world. So we do offer lighter levels of care for more of an average person who's like, hey, I'm working my job, but I'm struggling. I need to talk to somebody. Yeah, we do virtual intensive outpatient, and we're going to be offering that very soon in a couple of new states on the East Coast. DUI education too. We do a fair amount of DUI education in Arizona, and we'll be taking that with us to our new locations.
Nice.
DUI, I mean, until autonomous cars take over, I mean, people go keep drinking and driving, and I drive on these streets with my babies, so I care about keeping the streets as safe as we can.
Indeed, brother. How can people reach you?
The best is cornerstonehealingcenter.com. It's long, but it's straightforward. Cornerstonehealingcenter.com, that's our main website. If you want to find me, you can find me and a bunch of my crazy rantings about this stuff on Instagram. My name is Estil, Estil underscore Wallace, Wallace. We've got YouTube for both Cornerstone, and we've got a podcast with Cornerstone called Struggle and Strive. Yeah, if you Google my name, you'll find lots of stuff. But there's plenty of stuff as far as the conversation like we've had today out there that you can find. And of course, if they want to get in touch with us to find out for a loved one or for themselves, if they've just got questions, they can always reach directly out to us.
Estil Wallace, Cornerstone Healing Center. Thank you so much, my brother, for taking the time out to speak with me, and much love to you and much success to your organization. I really thank you for taking this time, man. I really do. Much success to you again, man. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you all for paying attention and watching the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross podcast. As I always say, guys, it's okay to not be okay. Just do something about it. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, have a good evening. Estel, salute, my brother. You take care.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.